Location of the dam that was built by Zul-Qarnain to prevent Gog and Magog from penetrating the barrier. To the best of my ability, I acknowledge that this is the dam that was built by Zul-Qarnain and will show you the location of the dam was built on the collective evil of Gog and Magog to prevent them from penetrating the barrier. Zul-Qarnain, the mean with two horns owner, it certainly he doesn't have two horns, but it was called that. Why did they call him the two horns? I don't have an answer and I don't know that. The story of a great king, a worshipper, a slave of God, was probably not a prophet of God, however definitely he was a Unitarian, only believes in one God. Despite his wealth and power and strength, God gave him a king who worshipped God sincerely, and God had given him phonemical strength, phenomenal both physical strength, able to lift things, carry things and move things, but also his army that God given him was a formidable army, and one of the things that Zul-Qarnain loved to do or had a vision of was, he wanted to bring a lot of the world under the rule of God. Yes, under his rule and authority, but the point was that he would spread monotheism at the same time as well. He had no financial worry, he was a king. Secondly, he had no power issue, because God gave him a huge army that was formidable. Also, many kings suffer from bad image, but no, he had a good image and people knew about Zul-Qarnain and they knew that he was a righteous king and that he was pious man. The first trip of Zul-Qarnain, which is to the sunset area. Some people say that he was wandering north when he came crossways the mountain. He took a path, meaning he wanted to go somewhere, so he took a path of travel until he had come to a place where the sun sets, in the west. And when he went west, he found the sun going down in murky sludges mud waters. Some scholars distinguish and select many different regions, others said it's and upon that area, in the east. Then he continued this journey to the east from the place of viewing and seeing. Zul-Qarnain on the first trip did not head west in the sense of meaning, but rather headed east-west. I imagine and do not exaggerate from where he was standing his back was to the east and the murky sludges mud waters was in front of him that was as warm as it. From where he was standing, the view for him is west, he could see the sun setting in front of him, he found it setting in a murky spring sludges in the direction of the west. From where he was standing his back direction was to the east, his center standing was east-west and the murky spring sludges mud waters exactly in front of him. The vision was according to him in terms scenes were to the west. Until, when he reached the setting of the sun, he found it setting in a murky spring. He found the sun going down in murky hot water and mud. He found people in its vicinity. God said, "O Zul-Qarnain, you may either inflict a penalty, or else treat them kindly." I will show that later when watching the video on the Google map. After the first trip, which is to the sunset area, then the second trip, which is to the sunrise area, the second trip of Zul-Qarnain. This area may be a wide wilderness. So, they were basically savages who didn't have even proper dwellings, who didn't even cover themselves properly, who had basically no barrier against the sun. We cannot say that they are naked, but their clothes may not be dense due to the hot area. In Quran, until, when he reached the rising of the sun, he found it rising on a people for whom we had provided no shelter from it. The sun is intense and shines on their heads. As for me, I believe that the land area which these people live is large and very hot area. They did not have a cover of the hot sun's rays, which means that they are exposed from a geographical and climatic standpoint. The third trip of Zul-Qarnain. Then headed to the east, which is the area where there are people living in plains agricultural land low above sea level, or you can say, a valley located between two natural barriers, which appear to be two large mountains. Behind these two barriers, meaning the two mountains, the people of Gog and Magog, the corruptors, live in that land. I believe that between the second journey and reaching between the two natural barriers, to the shepherd people who live in the plains of the valley. Behind them, Gog and Magog, is a long distance, so I consider this as third journey of Zul-Qarnain. So here is the real location of the collective evil of Gog and Magog Dam, which was built by the righteous servant Zul-Qarnain. If you check the map, you find that the dam site is almost completely black. You can see large kilometers around the area of the dam is also blackness resulting from the mixture of iron and fire that was used in the construction of the dam that took place many centuries, but the effect is still there. Currently, engineers mix iron and copper, especially in bridge builders and places that need enormous capabilities to create very strong buildings. The area also contains a huge amount of iron and tar copper, and this is further evidence that this is the site of the barrier and backfill that Zul-Qarnain built. When you look closely, you see that the area around the strait is high above sea level, resulting in extreme cold and snow on the mountain peaks. How did he communicate with the people there in terms of language, as the Quran said, Surah Al-Kahf, the cave, verse number 93? Until, when he reached the point separating the two barriers, he found beside them people who could barely understand what he said. This results from the fact that they live in a remote area, far removed from the area which Zul-Qarnain came from. So, we can say these people could hardly understand what he said. But Zul-Qarnain can understand the language of these people, or otherwise he wouldn't have talked to them. So how did he understand the language of these people? Do you rule this out? God, who subjected all the reasons to him to reach this region, God who enabled him on earth and gave all causes, and God also gives him all the reasons on and sign of how the dam was built. Do you think that God is unable to teach Zul-Qarnain the language of the people who live between the two separating barriers? Point. Now I came to the word radam in Arabic. The word radam in Arabic means as backfill in English. Let me say that Arabic words contain many meanings, and that any meaning of the word comes in the formulation of the sentence. Words in the Arabic language are rich in meanings and words, therefore, when you translate Arabic words into another language, you may sometimes find that there is a difference, and the word may lose its meaning. The word dam in English and radam in Arabic, in the linguistic sense, it means completely different meaning. A dam is a barrier that stops or restricts the flow of surface water or underground streams. Reservoirs created by dams not only suppress floods but also provide water for activities such as irrigation, human consumption, industrial use, aquaculture, and navigability. Hydropower is often used in conjunction with dams. And the word radam in Arabic meaning backfill. So, did Zul-Qarnain build a dam? These people who live between the two barriers asked Zul-Qarnain to build a dam for them, but Zul-Qarnain said, "Help me, with God's help, and I will make between you and them," meaning, Gog and Magog. He said, "I will demolition and backfill the area between the two mountains on the valley straight below the mountain." Here I can say in fact, Zul-Qarnain did not build a dam, but he filled in between the two barriers, which are the two mountains. Zul-Qarnain carried out the backfilling process between the two barriers. I can say what Zul-Qarnain demolished and filled between the two natural barriers, which are the two mountains in the valley strait, which the people of Gog and Magog used to attack the people who are behind the valley strait. This is what he did, the two branches, so in fact he demolition of backfill. When we talk about backfilling, I think, the two barriers Zul-Qarnain, he must have started from the top and started backfilling between the two cliffs. Whether Zul-Qarnain he got into an operation demolition and backfilling from above at top, or from the bottom between the two natural barriers, for us this does not matter, but to the Zul-Qarnain accounts it means a lot. The important thing is that a barrier was built in the valley between the two cliffs, but I see is when looking at practical and scientific means, according to Zul-Qarnain he is to carry out the process of demolition from above, then backfilling. Also, we will not forget that he requires a huge amount of materials in order him to be able to fill the place that is in the valley between the two natural barriers. Therefore, since it is the work of filling between the two natural barriers and not just making a dam here, it is naturally to demolished from the top until and filled to the bottom, for backfilling the barrier in the valley. A questioner may ask, why fire? Here I say that's in the process of making a sword. Is it not made of iron and hammering the iron and setting fire onto the iron itself until then the iron becomes a strong, smooth, sharp sword and held together? So therefore, the same process is done in bridging to separates the people behind the strait, from the people of Gog and Magog. That is, the barrier built by Zul-Qarnain became strong, sharp, solid, and cohesive together. Iron-copper materials were used on the backfill process. Finally, blowing into fire means lighting a fire on the materials used itself. The concept of backfilling, as for how Zul-Qarnain backfilled the two cliffs barriers from the above, this I do not know. As for how he climbed to the top, I have no answer, and I have no knowledge of that. What I know is, that God is explained to Zul-Qarnain how to build the barrier to equal the two barriers. Is God unable to teach him how to fill from the top? Of course, God is capable of everything, just as God can make a dam without the need for Zul-Qarnain, isn't that? God has reasons for the entire universe. In fact, let us not forget that God gave him strength and form for all reasons, then inspired him with how to build backfilling, and gave him a large, powerful army with him in which, the branches Zul-Qarnain, took reasons in all his 3 journeys. Surah Al-Hadid, the Iron verse 5. To him belongs the kingship of the heavens and the earth, and to God all matters are referred. Surah Al-Hadid, the Iron verse 25. And we sent down iron, in which is violent force, and benefits for humanity. That God may know who supports him and his messengers invisibly. God is strong and powerful. That's when he got up demolition the area between the 2 natural barriers and start backfilling the area. It is normal for the valley to be in straight at the bottom between the 2 mountains. He said to the people there, placed solid iron between the 2 barriers, so that when it had leveled up between the 2 cliffs in the strait, then he set fire to it. He said to the people up there to blow. And having turned it into a fire, then he commanded them, the people there, to pour tar copper. He said, bring me tar to pour over it. It's until the dam became smooth, solid, and strong, so that no one could get out. No one knows whether Gog and Magog are now under the dam or between the dam or underground. It is only known by God, and that he hidden these corruption people on earth, Gog and Magog, from seen until day's end of time, the signs of the great hour. Remember that this is not going to stay all the time, but if the promise of God comes, God will destroy this barrier. The name Zul-Qarnain and name of Gog and Magog are mentioned in the Quran in Surah Al-Kahf. The cave. God Almighty said in the Quran, Surah Al-Kahf, verse 94 to 100, the cave. They said, Zul-Qarnain, the Gog and Magog are spreading chaos in the land. Can we pay you to build between us and them a wall? He said, what my Lord has empowered me with is better. But assist me with strength, and I will build between you and them a barrier. It means filling the site between the 2 cliffs. Bring me blocks of iron. So that, when he had leveled up between the 2 cliffs, he said, blow. And having turned it into a fire, he said, bring me tar to pour over it. So, they were unable to climb it, and they could not penetrate it. He said, this is a mercy from my Lord. But when the promise of my Lord comes true, he will turn it into rubble, and the promise of my Lord is always true. On that day, we will leave them surging upon one another. And the trumpet will be blown, and we will gather them together. On that day, we will present the disbelievers to hell, all displayed. So, we come to conclusion that God has given causes and reasons to Zul-Qarnain. God has placed causes in the universe, and he commanded us to take reasons. Therefore, the story of Zul-Qarnain is also an example for all people, to take reasons and trust in God alone. Therefore, we concluded that God has given Zul-Qarnain all reasons for those trips he took. Gog and Magog have been trying to break down the wall since the day it was complete. However, one day during the sovereignty of Jesus, an individual will rise from the tribe of Gog and Magog, and he will be clever to break down the wall. That would be the period when Gog and Magog will arise with full control again and will cause vast danger in the world. The globe would convert messy after their coming. There will be a lack of food and water, millions of individuals would be killed by these peoples. Until God would listen to Jesus, peace be upon him, and his followers do us. He would send a group of insects that will kill the entire tribe of Gog and Magog. The location Gog and Magog Dam is between the borders of Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan, within the borders of Kyrgyzstan. The site has been known to Muslims since the days of the Abbasid Caliph al-Mu'tasim Billah and Salam al-Turjman's journey to discover the location of the demolition and backfill of dam that was built by Zul-Qarnain. We will follow that later. Soon I will make a full episode about Salam al-Turjman's and his expedition to Gog and Magog Dam. The site on the map is blocked even if you search on Google Map for the site for the dam. With regret it will show you the message the site unknown, or non-existent. Tried again, but there is always a poverty that can enter through and locate the site. You need to have some experience in geography and some experience in navigation so that you can determine the longitude and latitude in numbers, here forcing Google Earth to give you the location by identification and without confusion.